Hi, my name's Natalie and welcome to my first and maybe last YouTube video. I will be 40 in a couple of weeks' time, and my significant other, during lockdown, as we had to cancel all of our plans, asked me if I wanted a Bernina. So I've always wanted a Bernina sewing machine. I currently use a Pfaff, and yesterday my new Unicorn, my Tula Pink 570 Bernina sewing machine arrived, and it took everything I had not to rip the boxes to shreds, but I wanted to do a video because I wanted to do, or should I say prolong the joy of my new sewing machine, but also because I've been thinking about getting a Bernina for a really long time. I did a lot of research and I watched a lot of videos and I gathered a lot of information, and one of the things that I noticed is that we hadn't had a UK Bernina unboxing of the Tula Pink X special edition, and so I thought, you know what, let's just have a crack at this and see how it goes. So this could be good, could be bad, might be awful, but put some comments below, but please don't shatter my hopes and dreams. So anyway, let's get on with the unboxing. Two boxes it comes in. Unfortunately, in the UK, we don't get all of the fancy bits and pieces, the Tula hardware. So some I already have, which is in my scissor bit up there, and some other friends have bought me for, again, my birthday. Normally everybody's complaining that they don't know what to get me, but this year everybody seems to know sewing things. I suppose I should have organised a musical interlude while I do all of this unboxing. So, top of the box, what do we have? We have some Metler machine embroidery thread, yellow, red, blue and green, so kind of very Olympic colours. And I have a power, no I don't, I have a USB cord for connecting it to the computer, and then a little bag of goodies. Okay, let's have a look at what's in my bag of goodies. So we have some jersey and embroidery needles, always helpful to have. More of these. I have a little net, which I then understood goes over the top of your thread to stop it from kind of spindling all over, but I always think it looks like the things that oranges come in when you go to the supermarket. These, I think, are the little clips that go into what they call the accessory wardrobe, and what everybody else seems to call the storage box, or if you're in the States, they call it a Barbie box, which I think is quite random. And then I also have another little box of something. Ooh. Embroidery foot. So for your free motion embroidery, your little bouncer along foot. I wonder why that's in a box and not in the other one, but I'm sure I'll see more feet yet to come. Try and be tidy and put everything away. Not. I live in jealousy of sewers that are very meticulous, make notes, put things away, because unfortunately my room is tidy only because I tidied it this morning. Oh, okay. White polystyrene. A bit more of a box. More polystyrene, more polystyrene, and what I think is an embroidery unit. Now, I haven't really embraced embroidery. It's one of those things that I kind of think looks quite nice, and I have two young girls, both under the age of 4. And so the concept of this was really kind of introduced by my friend, who was like, do you know what, if you're going to get one that's future-proofed, get one that you can put other stuff on if you decide you want to do it. And hey, who does not want to embroider a unicorn on the back of a jean bomber jacket for a 4-year-old? So I suspect I might be pimping my daughter's clothes, perhaps uniforms, over the next couple of years, and I'm really excited. So there's going to be lots of learning, I can imagine, with this bad boy. But, oh, here is, make sure I'm not throwing anything else apart from silica. Here is the embroidery unit, which actually looks like something out of Star Wars, like some kind of alien ship if you're a geek like me. I'm showing my true colours now. that locks in. I think this is one of the new versions. So I have a new Series 5. I think they came out after 2008, and some of the older embroidery units don't quite look the same. I don't think they lock onto the front of the machines as they do now. But I have been told that these do lock onto other machines. So if you don't have an embroidery unit with your current Series 5 or Series 7, I think these are all interchangeable. But I'm really looking forward to embracing the embroidery to come. What else is in here? So, embroidery hoop number 1. That's not bad. That fit on the back of a child's coat. My poor children. They're going to be like, Mum, please stop doing this to me. Oh, this is one of those markups so that when you put your fabric in and you put your guide, which you can't really see, there you go, you can't really see, it's so that you can line everything up, so that if you were doing kind of like a letter and if the letters weren't all grouped together. So one of the things I know is a difference between the 5 and the 7 was the ability to group on your embroidery. So if what you wanted to do was put a compilation of images together, you can group them, but I don't think you can do that with the 5. So one thing to point out, I have a special edition Bernina, but to be totally honest, the machine is the same. All that's different is the oil slick, and it's prettier, and it's got different embroidery stitches and patterns that have been shipped with it. But ultimately, if you're buying a 5.7, the unboxing is relatively the same. And then we have a smaller hoop and a smaller grid to help you line up. I think other hoops are available. So looking at this, it has little clips at the side, and then on the embroidery unit, there is a little bit for it to clip on. So I would suspect that that's going to be zipping backwards and forwards, kind of like a wrapper. And doing all of that wonderful embroidery. Now I do freehand embroidery, and that is something that I'm really looking forward to finding in here, which is the Bernina stitch regulator. So at the moment I have a few machines, and my favourite for free motion embroidery is randomly what I got bought for a birthday a couple of years ago by my parents-in-law was a Singer featherweight, a little white one, and walking around a car boot sale I found one of the little feet, and the thing with that is it's great if you know what you're doing, but if you go fast you get big stitches, and if you go slow you get smaller stitches, and with the Bernina stitch regulator you get the same stitch regardless of whether or not you're whizzing around or you're doing it slow. So I'm really quite looking forward to doing that. I probably should mention that I'm a dressmaker to start with, and through friends and kind of general boredom have started to do some, no, that's the end of the box, have started to do some quilting, and part of that experience is the quilting of the top, which is when you make all the lovely patterns on the top. I've never really done that, but I'm quite looking forward to it because it's going to kind of bring together that free motion embroidery that I enjoy doing. And also, I'll then have something to kind of throw over the girls when they get older and they're cold. We are a blanket family. We do like to snuggle, as the girls call it. So I'm now into the sewing machine box, which I will say weighs an absolute ton. And luckily, other half was available yesterday when it arrived and was able to bring it in from the doorstep, out socially delivered. In other words, they left it in the middle of our garden and then we walked out, picked it up and brought it into the house. But hey, this is lockdown and I don't care as long as it gets into my house. Okay, opening up the second box. Probably need a bit more space. Okay, in the top of the box, extension table, which always very, very handy. The weird thing I always thought about with Berninas is it's almost like they just start with their free arm, whereas on the sewing machines I'm used to, you have like a sewing space about this big, and then you'd pop that off, and then that would give you the free arm. But with your Berninas, you automatically start with a free arm, which I can imagine, if you don't have an extension table, can be quite irritating. But happily, extension table has arrived, and also has some lovely little measurements and some guides. So whether or not you're trying to do a 1/4 inch seam or a centimetre seam or a 2 centimetre seam, depending on what you're making, always handy to have. And then I've got another box of gubbins, or a bag of box gubbins, I should say. Ooh, bobbins. Love me some bobbins. So the new Bernina bobbin, which if you're a Bernina fan, you've probably heard 100 times, have these massive bobbins. I've read that some of them are between 70 to 80% longer, and they also have this nice little kind of like silver edge, which allows the machine to tell you which way you can put it in, because you can only put it in one way, which considering that I've had my faff for about 4 years, I still have to look at the picture at the top to tell me which way the bobbin goes round. But you can't go wrong with these. And it also has a nice little sensor as well that tells you when you're running out. I used to have a side loading bobbin, and now I have a top loading bobbin, and the Berninas have gone back to a side loading bobbin. And I understand that with the hooks, the side loading bobbins are just more efficient from the hook. So the hook is kind of what causes the stitch to go down, gets hooked and comes back out again. And I suppose logic would say that that is a more effective motion than that. So again, I think that's part of the Bernina standard, aka we have really great stitch quality, and it is maintained. So looking forward to having some more of these. There's 4 in there, and I did have a look. So I bought my sewing machine from Frank Nutt, and I think you can buy 5 for a tenner. So again, sewing machine people, we always end up with tons of thread, and who wants to waste thread by pulling it off a bobbin? So, you know, this is now the sewing machine for the next foreseeable future, as I've told him, and probably will be. So I'll be investing in a couple more bobbins. What we've got is spool caps and the foam that sits at the bottom, so that your spool of thread can like spin around unhindered, and also the top to stop it flying off. So we have a big one and a small one. We have 2 of these little gubbinsy bits. We have an extra small one, which I'm assuming fits on something. I'm not sure I ever have anything that small, but I'm sure there probably is something. General screwdriver for doing your maintenance on your machine. Every good seamstress still needs a seam stripper. Seam ripper. I have quite a few, including the Bernina one, which came with this kind of scalpel point at the end, which kind of scared me to death a little bit. But I've just started doing some English paper piecing, and I had to unstitch something, and to be honest, I couldn't get my seam ripper down those tiny little stitches. So now I understand why we have this kind of blade, scalpel blade. Interesting approach to sewing to now bring medical stuff in. And then we have these, which are for sewing over kind of bulky seams. So if you're like making jeans or etc., when your machine kind of doesn't like going over that hump, that's what these are for. So different heights for different things to try and help you get over your lumpy, bumpy seams. So in order to carry on, rather than what I would normally do, which is just swipe it all to the side, let's put all of these bobbins away and see what else. Okay, so we have the Bernina Stylus, and there's a little bit at the side so that you can stick it on. If, like me, you have kind of sausage fingers, and my nails are shocking. For some reason in lockdown, all I've seemed to do is sit and chew them. So, you know, don't look too closely. These things are brilliant, because the amount of times that I'm texting somebody and I text a D and I get the letter next to it, or I text a 3 and I get a 4, and you're constantly going back. At least this allows you to be a little bit more pristine, and also kind of keep all those yucky fingerprints off your screen. Great. And then oil. Now, one of the things that I never really realised is how important oil is. Happily, mine is well and truly still in the bottle, but a lot of people I've heard have theirs has slightly exploded during shipping. Because Bernina is a metal machine, so it's metal on metal. you need to oil it, and there's plenty of videos out there that show you how to oil your Bernina machine. The recommendation is to go to Bernina and buy their oil. So I have some Singer oil. I'm not quite sure if that's the same as this, because I have some old Singers, again made of metal, that I have to oil on a regular basis. I think the guidance is to oil your machine, well, some people say like after every project, but hey, a project could be quite long depending on how you're going, and some people say after every bobbin change, but then that seems to be quite often. But I suppose if you've got 70% more, who knows. But the Bernina will cry at you if you need to. So I've also heard, so I should say my mum had a Bernina when I was a kid, so she never taught me to sew per se when I was a child, but she's definitely got involved as I've got older, and she used to have an old Bernina, so I always remember my mum's, and she always used to say if it starts rattling, so your bobbin starts rattling, or it starts kind of making a lot more noise than you're used to, you probably need to oil it. I think in today's world we're a lot more used to plastic machines, and so by proxy you don't really, well, you do oil them, but you maybe don't oil them as much as you used to, but because they're metal and they get hot and they do like 1,000 stitches a minute, I'm not sure if this one does 900 or 1,000. I want to say 1,000. It's going to get really hot really fast. And so oiling is quite important. And I hear that lots of people drink oil, or lots of people's machines drink oil. I drink coffee. Okay. What else do we have? Oh, I was looking at these. I didn't know if we actually got one. I'm quite excited to see that actually. So this goes on your extension table, and again it's a seam guide. So if you've got like a really long piece, like I don't know if you've been watching the Sewing Bee, which I love and have a sewing group, and we constantly are commenting on it. The last week's one was the swishy kind of salsa skirts, and they were just hemming for ages and ages and ages. And I don't know about you, but sometimes you're just like, oh, you're wobbling all over. It's kind of like walking in a straight line for a really long time. Eventually you kind of lose your balance. This little bad boy slides up and down your table and allows you to keep straight seams. So really pleased to see that in there, because I'd not seen that on any of the other videos. And then we have a nice big packet of Bernina stuff. So these are all the accessories. So I'm going to try and whiz through this as quickly as I can and eventually go. So what we have is the editing toolbox. So this is all to do with software, all to do with embroidery, and I'm going to suspect you can make your own, but as I haven't got that far and there wasn't that much on the internet, we'll have to wait and see what happens with that one. So here is my embroidery DVD or CD. It says DVD, but I'm not quite sure if that means that it shows you how to use it or if it's actually embroidery stuff. What else do we have? Download your free trial of some more embroidery elements for your software. And then we have a dear customer, congratulations on your purchase of the 570 QE special edition, yada 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 yada. This talks about the oil slick. So if you do have a Bernina, there is a kind of disclaimer that comes along with this, that they talk about the fact that abrasions can occur, but it's not covered by the warranty because it's a special edition. Lots of people have said that it's, look after your machine, look after your oil slick finish, and it'll last as long as possible. And I think some of these machines have been out for a year, so I'm coming in at the end, but hey, this is still fun and I'm enjoying myself. And then you have your guarantee. Now, important thing to note about the guarantee, again, I mentioned I bought mine from Frank Nutt, who is kind of just south of Birmingham, and so that's about an hour and a half drive for me. But one of the things that they had said was don't throw your box away. So with your guarantee, which is 7 years, you have to have your machine serviced twice in the first 2 years, and in the first 7 years. So you must have it serviced once in the first 3 years. Now, you can either get in your car, you can drive. So for me, I could get in the car, drive to Frank's, drop my machine off, then nip round the corner to the rag market, spend an absolute fortune on fabric to make myself feel better that my machine is currently at the doctor's, pick it up and drive home. But if I can't do that for whatever reason, aka things like lockdown, I can put it back in the box and ship it. So don't get rid of your box if you ever intend on shipping your Bernina anywhere to get it serviced and to kind of keep your warranty. What else? Accessories book. Yeah, I accessorise everything, and so I shall be accessorising. Oh, but there is a little picture on the front of the Bernina stitch regulator, and then there's a little picture of the embroidery embroidery foot. So I should probably have a read through, and no doubt, like at Christmas, I will start ticking off everything that I want. So if you're of a certain age, you probably did that with like the Argos catalogue when you were a kid. And we then have our special edition Bernina service manual, but it is the Tula Pink one. So that's quite nice. And it does have some nice pictures of all of the oil slick finishes, etc. So again, I live by my manual, and will kind of probably spend far too much time reading through that bad boy. What else is in here? Oh, more thread from Metla. So now I have the red, white and grey. So that's the Bernina colours. So I now have, what, 4, 5, 6, 7 lots of thread, and I also have some universal Bernina needles, which is great because I really do go through needles. One, because I often forget to change the stitch back and end up going from a zigzag to a straight strip and smashing it on whatever foot happens to be in my machine at the time. But also I'm aware that you are supposed to change them probably more often than I do. I don't go months, but I probably need to change it more often. So this is a fancy piece of gubbins. This is your knee lift. So it locks into the front of your machine, sits underneath the table, and it allows you to use your knee to lift the foot. So if you're doing kind of quilting, I suppose, or you're doing like the seam on a collar and you want to kind of keep moving it round because you can't get like the turning circle on your machine's not that great, or I'm just not very good at navigating a turning circle on a machine, you can kind of hover your foot a little bit so that you can keep kind of jinxing it round. So happy. Although this reminds me of the I've got a knee operated old Singer, which instead of having a foot plate you have one of these, so I suppose I better stop and not get those two confused. Power cord with 3 plugs because it's an English one. Ooh, a box or a bag of feet. This is quite exciting. So when I was looking at other machines, because I did consider the 480, being that predominantly I am a dressmaker, but they didn't come with half as many feet. They didn't come with the stitch regulator. It didn't come with all the embroidery gubbins. And so, hey, I uplifted my purchase and spent probably more money than I thought possible on a sewing machine. Hence why I had to phone my insurance company and have my sewing machine listed on my insurance, which they did chuckle at. But hey, better safe than sorry, because these things aren't cheap. So what we have in here are some open-toed kind of feet. Now, one of the things that's quite interesting is that their feet are literally made of like 2 pieces of metal, whereas some of my other feet have been kind of lots of pieces. So these things are proper sturdy. And with the new bit, you literally just push it up, push it down. Again, more feet. This one is the 97. I should have written down what they all were. So this is a zipper foot, so I know this, and I do know that the difference between the two. So this is a dual feed foot. So anything that's got a D next to it is dual feed, and these are the standard feet. So the dual feed is kind of like a walking foot, but not quite a walking foot. Again, did some reading up on this. So the dual feed allows you to hook onto the back of the foot, but what it does is when your bottom fabric is being pulled by your feed dogs and your top fabric is kind of like just stuck on the bottom fabric and then coming along for the rise. And if what you're trying to do is pattern match, like plaids or something like that, what can happen is it can start off great, but by the time you get to the end, if you're a dressmaker, you kind of got this really pesky overhang, which irritates me no end because it makes it look more homemade, because your seams aren't lined up, or when you get to the hem at the bottom of a jacket, you've got a little bit sticking over on the edge. The dual feed allows the top to move as the bottom moves. Now, it's not a walking foot because it doesn't have, like walking feet have, I think they have their own motors, and so what that does is it shifts everything, including all the binding on the inside. But hey, I don't have a Bernina walking foot. I didn't get one with this, so I'm going to see how I get on with the dual feed and kind of go from there. So again, more dual feed feet and overlock foot. Absolutely love the overlock foot. Now, one of the things that I did discover was the joy of feet with my old machine, and I had like a whole box, and I'd really started to kind of work my way through them. And the one that I absolutely love is the overlock. Now I have an overlocker, but the pain of having to change it when you've got white cotton on there and you want black cotton and you've got something to do that's like this big. So the overlock foot for me is brilliant because I'll just use it to like quickly tie up seams and so on and so forth, and it's just an absolute godsend. So if you are wanting to buy yourself an overlocker or just make things look a little bit more tidy, if you're a dressmaker, just invest in an overlock foot because they are brilliant. And an overlocker, while they are great, they trim your fabric as you go, so you're in danger of like losing half a seam. And it's took me a while to get used to my overlocker, and to be honest, if I'm going to use that, I'm going to be using it on big projects, and I'm probably going to be using it as a sewing machine as well. But either way, those are the feet that we've got. Looking forward to putting them in the little wardrobe. Oh, I might have to call mine an accessory wardrobe. And then we've got the Bernina USB key. So unfortunately it's not a unicorn one, but it doesn't matter because it's still got this like nice little pink Bernina, or a pink Tula and a red Bernina on the front. One thing I have heard about these is that some people have found that they have lost all of their embroidery off the back. So off their USB, so the recommendation is back it up on a laptop, on a hard drive, on another USB. But hey, these things, once you lose them or they've gone, probably are a little bit more complicated to actually find or renewing. So I shall be taking the IT advice and backing up. Okay, that is everything that is in the top piece of. There is a lot of polystyrene in here. So I can now see. I can see her. Did I tell you that my machine is called Bluebell? Yeah. So we have a dust cover. So normally the Bernina dust covers are black and grey, I think, but this dust cover is a normal light grey. But again, because it is a Tula version, it has been pimped with a nice little Tula badge. What you've got a pocket on the back. We've got a pocket on the side, and then we've got a magnetised flap over the top so that you can carry your handle, and a little flap over that so that the dust doesn't get in, because dust, I don't know about your house, but with kids and cooking, dust in my house can be quite greasy and yucky. I think it's just kind of like the nature of modern day houses. They're always really warm, and so things just tend to linger, especially every time he decides he's going to go and do some DIY and the house is full of like dust off the floor or whatever he's kicked up. So definitely want to be protecting your machine. And I should suspect that in the accessory book I can buy a hardcover, so I might invest in one of those. Will Bluebell be coming with me to class? Probably not. She might make one or two kind of star visits so that I can kind of share the joy of my machine with my friends, which we actually do on a regular basis. Every time somebody has something new, we all have to kind of gather around and love and adore it. But I'm probably not going to be taking her because she weighs an absolute ton. And also, I'd freak out if I had a car accident with that in the car, or somebody clipped me, or somebody stole it, or something like that. So we will be keeping the faff. This is the accessory box, or style wardrobe, as I'm probably now going to be calling it, or Barbie box if you're American. It is magnetised, so it sits nicely on the back of your machine. And nope, some of them have little feet so that you can kind of flick it out, but this one does seem to stand quite nicely on its own. So let's have a quick look. So behind the packaging, you have all of the little compartments for messy sewers like myself to continue to put stuff away. So what I tend to have is like little boxes and little tubs, and I just kind of shove everything in here. But this is one of those things where everything has a place, and if everything is in its place, Natalie, you won't lose it, which is what my mother tells me all the time. So in here we have space for feet, space for your little foam spool holders. We've got a little drawer at the bottom, and that has some additional racks, so if you want to put more feet in, or you want to store some other bits and pieces, you can put those in. And then at the beginning of the video we had some little additional racks that you can put in for additional types of storage. Nothing else in there, so I shall revert back to childhood and treat this like a doll's house, and will be quite happy to put all of my stuff in and leave it sitting on my desk making me happy every day that I now have a Bernina. What else is in here? Bernina Stitch Regulator. I'm quite excited about the gubbins that's in this machine. So I've already talked about this, but I'm really excited to see it. I nearly fell off my chair when I saw how much these things were. But I'm hoping it's going to be worth every penny. And to be honest, it's now included in a package. So the cost was absorbed in the overall, so it doesn't really have to bother me anymore. So within your bag, you've got a book, which seems like quite a hefty book, to be honest. But I'm sure it's going to give me a exact instruction on what to do, what not to do, aka what not to do. Put your finger underneath it because the piece of fabric's not lying straight and it goes straight through your nail. So you get a new foot for your embroidery on this one, so it's going to hold the fabric closer. So that's probably going to stop me putting my finger underneath it. Happy days. You also get another type of foot, so just an open-toed one, so perhaps not as, the space for holding the fabric's not as big on the second one as the other one. And then, oh, when things fall off, I think that was just something holding over the end, but your little plug-in for your stitch regulator, which I am again super excited about. Right, let's pop that back in its box. Pop that back in the box. That bit. Lid on. Book in. And another tin for my collection. What's in this? Oh, buttonhole foot. Now, this is quite a hefty buttonhole foot. I'm used to them being quite plasticky, but I suppose as with everything from a Bernina perspective, everything is quality and made to last. So this is your buttonhole foot. I'm looking at this and thinking that this is not a measure one. It's got the little plastic bit so you can kind of move it, but I think on the screen you have the ability to take a button and measure it. So you put the button up to the screen, you actually measure how big the button is, and then the machine will then naturally make it larger. Whereas in some of the ones that I've been used to, you put the button at the back and then it's just kind of magically measured it. And that is a kind of a design that's been around for donkey's years, because some of my old singers, when I look in those manuals from like 1920s, they still have exactly the same kinds of button bits and pieces as they did then. So one more button foot to fit into my wardrobe. Oh, what have we got? We have got a foot pedal. I did start kind of enjoying sewing with just the start stop function, but I then started realizing that my foot was still tapping away under the table. I do know that there are certain things that you can program into this, like the kickback, and so you can like touch part of it and it'll make your machine work, but then you can also do quick movements and it will do other bits and pieces. Have yet to explore that, but I'm quite looking forward to it. The cable is nicely wound underneath. As mentioned, she's probably not going to be going on too many outings, but I am sure that when she does, I will not be winding it up, but in my head I think that I might be. Okay, now for the big reveal, because here comes Bluebell. Oh my god, Bluebell, you are a big girl and you wear a bloody ton. Dun dun dun! Right, let's turn her around. I'm so excited. She's so pretty. Okay, so, let's take off this front piece. So there are lots of little bits of sticky plastic. There's lots of foam bits in here in places that you might not have expected to see it. So the recommendation is, before you start doing everything, like with measure twice, cut once, check your Bernina a lot before you start, just to make sure that you've got everything. But let's have a look. So let's take this piece out. Let's take that bit off. I'm going to take all the sticky, plasticky stuff off afterwards. There's a nice picture of Bluebell with no clothes on. So if we ever wanted to know what she looked like underneath, we now have that image. And look at the finish. This is the bit that's really quite exciting. So I'm just going to move the camera a little bit. But there is your oil slick finish. And then we also have, excuse my bad camera woman, work, you have this wonderful oil slick finish on the front of here, and then all of these, all of the dots, the faceplate, etc., and obviously the Tula Pink bit at the bottom, and then the little hole for your knee lift. So I'm going to kind of pop that back where it was and hope that it stays where it needs to be. So I'm not going to boot this up because I want to just kind of take everything out, and I just want to kind of have a read through and just make sure. But let's face it, I have today booked off work, and I've also put a sign on the door saying, please do not enter. Not that my children could read it, but hey, I have the entire day to sit and play with my machine and to finish off the cushion that I'm making for my friend Jess, who's just moved house, and now I'm going to be able to embroider all of their names on the back in the day that they moved into their new house. So already I am pimping my machine and pimping my work. Oh, one thing to mention on this, you've got a cute little button here that pops up, so that is your spool holder, but you have a second spool holder down here, which if I lean her forward you'll be able to see. And one thing that I did learn from Tula, watching some of her videos, is that I always thought that this was just because you at some point might actually want to have two, you know, a dual feed going through, or two bits of cotton, and of course you do, and you would use it for that. But she also informed me, and one that I prepared earlier, is that different types of thread are wound onto bobbins in different kinds of ways. So I've pulled out some of my older style bobbins, so I'll just show you that one, and you'll see that the cotton has gone on kind of straight like this. And then here is one of my kind of moon coats ones, and you can see that the cotton there has gone on in angles like this. So I know that Gutterman goes on like this, and I think Orifil goes on like this. And then there's some of the cheaper makes from, you know, some of the 4-lettered supermarkets in the UK. They tend to go on in this way. Apparently, if it goes on in a crosshatch way, you use this one because it's designed to come off at an angle in this way. And if you have spools where the cotton goes on this way, you would use this one because it's designed to come off in a straight line this way. So didn't actually know that, but then she also informed that there is actually a correct, correct, kind of like with your fabric when you have your waft and your weft, which is wrong, but you know what I mean, when your fabric that goes, your cotton that goes across this way and your cotton that goes across that way. What you want to do is if you pull your cotton off your spool this way, then you need to put it through the eye of your needle, kind of that way as well. If you do it the other way, you're going against the grain, and so what you're doing is you're causing all of the thread extra stress and tension as you pull it through the fabric. So if what you're doing is finding that your cotton breaks, if you're paper piecing or if it's on the machine, you could just have extra. You might not have it on the correct spool, it could be causing extra tension, it's extra an aggressive way, I suppose, for it to kind of be introduced to the fabric, and it doesn't like it, and then it snaps and tells you, yeah, I've had enough. Again, just more random crap that I have learnt and discovered while I've been doing all of my research. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up at 37 minutes and 48 seconds. Again, I hope this has been informative. I've really enjoyed it, and the geeky thing is I will probably look at this in 10 years' time, realise that actually I look so much younger 10 years ago, and that my machine looks exactly the same because I have been looking after her and just reliving the joy. Thanks for joining me. Bye.